What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My guest this week is producer, rapper, DJ, professor, label head, and cultural ambassador Suzi Analogue. We spoke about the adaptation of Octavia Butler's Kindred, Spike Lee's Malcolm X, Menace II Society, The Color Purple, Ice Spice, teaching hip-hop at a college level, finding meaning in music, and the process behind her latest album, Infinite Zonez. Come fuck with us. What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back. Real Notes back, season 3. The world feels cool. It's not, but it feels cool. Maybe that's just the food talking. I just made breakfast for the first time today. Not ever. Let me stop. My name's Dylan Green, CineMasai. I got a lot of names and do a lot of shit, running around all crazy, but not like this second guest of season 3 we got here. This guest we got here, she's I tried to prep for this, but I don't think I did it right. You just like let me see, you're a rapper, you're a producer, you're a DJ, you're a college professor, you're a lot of things that I can't even think of a joke right now because there's like 18 other things in my head. But we got Suzi Analogue in the house today. Very, 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 very esteemed mover and shaker of music and culture and fly nigga shit. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. I've been listening a lot to the new album, and we're gonna talk about that and a lot of other shit. But before we get there, I'm gonna ask you everything. I'm gonna ask you the first question I ask everybody who comes on here, which was, what was the last movie or TV show you watched that you had a strong opinion about?
Oh, the last TV show was the Kindred series. The new
Oh,
Kindred.
how was that?
I was enthralled. I was enthralled. I mean, I won't lie, and y'all don't come for me. I had not finished reading the book, but I'm of course going to read the book. And I feel like, they didn't make you have to read the book. I've heard from people who are avid readers of that book saying that the show didn't really follow the book to the T or anything.
Right.
I'm really hoping they do another season of it, but I love the retrofuturism of it all. So I was really into it, and it's funny. It kind of struck me in a different way because it centers around a Black femme identity living in a house alone, which I do. I'm like, ooh, what if I started going back into time and nobody knew because I live here by myself and I'm stuck on a plantation and no one would know? That would be wild. So, now I'm a paranoid in a different way about my life.
Yeah. As if life's, as if life as a Black person and then a Black woman, Black femme on top of that isn't already paranoia inducing as it is. Like,
exactly.
And like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just said exactly.
I got you. Yeah, so I haven't started Kindred yet, but I'm a big Octavia Butler fan, so it's been on my list forever. Like, I'm trying to finish like 4 other shows right now. It's insane. But on the topic of time travel and just like the whole, like I mean, first and foremost, it reminded me how much I really did you see that Janelle Monáe Antebellum movie by any chance?
Yes, it had touches of that too. That's another film that really, I mean, I'm just really into American history. My family is indigenous to the country. I'm here in North Carolina right now, and I just watch stuff like that, and I'm really touched by the imagination to bring the past into the future in such like striking ways.
Yeah, I won't lie. I wish I liked Antebellum more. I think
Mm.
I think it would have been cooler if it was a time travel thing and it wasn't just like, oh yeah, these white people made this like colonist settlement and are like, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Janelle Monáe was great in it, but like but like I saw Kindred and I was like, oh, it seems like, you know, like it's that idea, which obviously Octavia Butler wrote Kindred before Antebellum was even a thing, but like
Right.
I feel like that's a I feel like Kindred's a more like complete and interesting idea or execution of that concept, and it's one that like I said, I've been dying to tap in. I just haven't had the time. Um,
Yeah,
but
it centers around the idea that what if you could change some family history of yours? And what if you could change something for your ancestors and help people into the future if you were able to go into the past with what you know today? And I'm always toying with that just in day-to-day life. So
right,
yeah, I'm mad intergenerational.
that's hard. That like just the way you describe that, that sounds tight. Like that sounds like maybe nah damn maybe I need to start it tonight. I'm a try. I'm a try.
Yeah,
I'm a
try
I'm
an
a
episode and see. I mean, it was easy to watch. I mean, in a way, it was easy to watch. It wasn't.
mhm.
I feel like it wasn't as heavy. Antebellum felt heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. It you know, like no offense to anybody, but it kind of felt Antebellum kind of felt like torture porn to me a little bit in like a
Mm.
and like this is coming from somebody who really loves like actual well like let me I gotta be careful about how I say this. I love the Saw movies and stuff like that. Because I was gonna
Mm.
say actual torture porn, but like that sounds crazy. So no, I mean like in terms of like horror films and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But Antebellum kind of felt like that in like a more exploitative and less thoughtful way than I would have liked. And I like that Kindred kind of feel it, you know, Kindred takes that idea and does something interesting in the sense of like, oh, let me go back, you know, like what if I could alter the past and change the future a little bit and make things better or worse or whatever. I'm just, you know, that's like also as a sci-fi fan, that's
Exactly.
I yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, and I already know you are. So like for you, let's run this back. Well, from the time you were young, what's the first movie experience you can remember having? It could be at the theater, it could be at your cousin's house, wherever.
When
First thing that comes
I
to mind.
was, I believe I was 4. My mom took me to see. She brought me in the theater with her to watch uh, Malcolm X.
Oh
With
wow, at
Denzel
4?
Washington. Yes. And she
Damn.
always said that. She said, and you sat there and you watched the whole thing. And you know that movie's like 3 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
She said,
Yeah.
you didn't cry. You just watched the whole thing. And I slightly remember being in that dark movie theater with that memory.
So now I gotta ask, since you saw, damn, you watched Denzel get assassinated on stage when you were 4 years old. That's kind of crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so do you remember like the second time? Like I assume you saw the movie again after you saw it that first time. What was it like seeing it the second time, being a little older and not being 4 and having a little more perspective?
When I watched it again, I had read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Right,
So I had more intel as to what actually happened. And Malcolm X is such a figure that I feel like, especially through the extension of being participating in hip hop, that I learned something new all the time about
right.
like his life and legacy. So I watched it from that lens and I felt sad. I felt more, I felt sad. I was just like, they were playing my boy. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot that happened in his life after reading about his early life as well. And so I think I had a more of a humanist perspective even when I watched it again as a young adult.
Yeah. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X in high school. And I think that might have been around the first time I ever saw the movie. And yeah, I feel you. I felt all of that. It was just like having the perspective and knowing the type of life he led was really dope. But then just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just makes you sad, like how, like how can you, I saw somebody tweet a couple of days about the fact that like, I can't remember. It was something about the idea of reparations and the fact that, like we, like slavery lasted 400 years, and it's just like the person was just like, like, I'm not surprised when I see people just so angry at that, because if you think about that for too long, you're gonna want to swing on somebody too. I'm paraphrasing, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like basically that. And like watching stuff like that, like especially like as a young adult, and or whether you're like a teenager in like your early 20s, it's like, it's really, like it fires you up on
Yeah,
some real shit.
it does, especially when you think of Black leadership in the community. It's just,
Right.
I mean, his story. I mean, it happened over and over again throughout my parents, young adulthood. But I sense now that's why my mom took me. She thought it was important. My mom was like a civil rights. She went through the civil rights movement. She went through
Yeah.
the Black arts movement. So she's like, I'm taking my daughter to see this at 4. We're going.
Right.
I'm like, okay, a little questionable, but you know what? I probably did the same thing.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, my father also lived through the civil rights era. He was at Dr. King's speech. Like, so
Wow.
yeah, so like I have that, he's very much in, he's very much of that cloth too. Like he showed us a lot of stuff young. I wasn't 4 years old watching Malcolm X, but he definitely took us. He did. He definitely took us. Yeah. I mean, like, the earlier the better. That's just like a funny movie to watch as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Um,
And apparently I watched the whole thing. I mean, I'm a Leo. I love drama.
right. Oh, that'll do it. That's beautiful. So like as you get older, was I mean like that's already a perfectly good example of this question, but like, was there a movie that you, or was there another movie that you saw when you were older that kind of made you fall in love with movies as something more than just a piece of entertainment? Like, it doesn't even have to be in like an artful way or any sort of thing like that. It could just be something that like really grabbed you and like affected you emotionally, or just something that was just like more than just like, this is fun, this is cool,
older,
this is funny.
older, but still a kid.
Yeah. Either way, like maybe like as a teenager or like as whichever. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So I grew up only child, and so my weekends I would find like hidden VHS tapes that my mom had, and I would watch
Yeah.
them in my room. And two films that really, like, of course, impacted me were Menace to Society. It was
Mm-hmm.
one huge one, and then The Color Purple was the other one. And those are two films that I would watch. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna watch it again. And so I'm still at this point, at least like maybe 10 years old, 9 or 10 at this point. But this is what I'm
Yeah.
watching every weekend.
Yo, did you watch them back to back?
No, I would pick and choose. Like, is this gonna be a
Okay.
Color Purple weekend, or is this gonna be a Menace to Society weekend?
Yo, man, like, and I never thought about this until just now, but like those two movies are really nice compliments for each other. I mean, like, obviously they take place across time and in different areas of the country, but like, you just think about the way that you think about the way that Menace and The Color Purple kind of both examine like Black manhood and Black womanhood, like
Mm-hmm.
respectively, and like how nuanced and like thoughtful and sad both those movies are, like especially Menace. That's kind of in the forefront of my, or I mean, like, they're both sad. Let me not say especially. I only say especially because I saw Menace the most recently, because I grabbed
Mm,
they have it through the Criterion collection, so I was like, yeah, I need to own this. And just like, just like it's because like Menace to Society is like a slice of life movie
yeah.
basically, and The Color Purple has like a more conventional plot to it,
Yeah.
like that feels more like a story versus Menace kind of feeling like just they filmed a bunch of kids in the projects, which I mean they literally did. Like Menace was shot in Watts, like on location with a bunch of not actors. But either way, like as you got older, was there ever a time where you looked at, you think about like Kane and Celie aren't exactly the same character, but just like the shit they both go through is
they had to
like
overcome.
yeah,
Tried
so
to overcome.
much.
Yeah.
like have you ever thought about like watching those two movies, even if it wasn't back to back, was there ever a time when you just kind of thought to yourself like, damn, like these two things kind of operate on the same track a little, huh? Like, don't they?
Yeah, it made me feel, I mean, even similar to Malcolm X, where I feel like if you are trying to stand for something, whether that even just be standing for yourself, there's a lot of systems around you as a Black person that are just going to draw you away from that or tell you that you cannot do that. And so I think both of those characters experienced that to the max. Celie was able to really overcome, but Kane got, taken down and was a product of his environment. It informed me, especially when I met artists from Los Angeles, moving into, because I became friends with many rappers and artists in Los Angeles. And I was like, I kind of feel like I know what you're on already, just because I used to watch Menace II Society so much. But yeah, it's a lot to overcome the systems of the city of Los Angeles, the systems of the Black American South, and a lot of Black folks that moved to, what I didn't know is that I was finding comfort in the accents and the things I didn't really know about the West Coast. Growing up as a huge East Coaster, I was born in B-More. My dad's from the Bronx, my mom's from North Carolina. So I didn't really know about the West Coast. And when I was watching Menace II Society, I actually found comfort in their accents and things like that. I think that drew me to continuing to watch it over and over, not knowing that those characters' accents or the people themselves were using their real accents based on being diasporic from the Deep South, the Deep American South. So it's funny how I just latched on to these kinds of ideas and found comfort in different things, even younger when I was watching representations of Blackness on screen.
Right. Yeah. It's just, yeah. Like there's just like, Menace feels so alive in a way that a lot of movies just don't, like that was, like that was the first, like watching Menace was the first time I'd ever heard anyone say like who got snaps on the petrol, like I say that like, like I say that. So, and, like I'm from Jersey, like, I'm like born in New York, raised in Jersey. My mom's from Long Island. My dad's from the Bronx. So like so like I had never been over to the West Coast before. And, like I said it's so funny. I said that to my girlfriend one day. I just like jokingly said like who got snaps on the petrol, and she looked at me like, the fuck does that mean? And I had to be like, like over on the West Coast, that's how they say like who's got gas money. And she's just like, why can't people just say things like why can't people just say what they mean? And I'm like, because it's just fly, like it's just cool, like
it's fly. Yeah, I think that might have been my first representation of just West Coast coolness. I grew up and I was still, alive. I know Gen Z can't say this, or Biggie and Tupac had beef. And so we used to go to school like when I'm little, and we're like, who do you like better, Biggie or Tupac? Like, and we're asking each other this, but we didn't know we were helping to fuel the East Coast West Coast war.
Yeah. Y'all were kids, man. That's not your fault.
Yeah, we didn't know. We were just saying what we overheard. But at the same time, I think that made me not really listen to West Coast rap as much, gangster rap. There was like a huge disapproval of it in mass media. And so I was just the East Coast girl. I just listened to what they played on the radio. They weren't playing a lot of West Coast records. So Menace II Society was in some ways a gateway, an introduction. Even the scenes of them being in the park, the scenes with their cars, how much they coveted car
Mm-hmm.
culture. I didn't know about that stuff, but it also felt familiar being at the time in the South where we had slight car culture, bass music in the trunk kind of thing. I grew up with
Right.
that. And so I was just seeing similarities that made me realize, well, this is blackness. This is cool black maleness. This is the femme position. Like I'm just learning from these kinds of movies, even though they weren't the most positive portrayals, they were real. And that was a
Right.
movie where everything, like you're saying, felt so real. I think that's what drew me to it.
Totally. And then before we move on, like, of course, The Color Purple takes place in North Carolina, but obviously it's like, so, like, it takes place so far back that it's like not exactly relatable in terms of like setting, and or maybe not in terms of setting, but at least in terms of like place, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But like,
Mm.
like having family from North Carolina, like what was it like watching, what was it like watching The Color Purple and kind of seeing that story play out as someone with actual roots out there?
It felt possible. It just I read the book. By the time I got to sixth grade, I actually read the book, and the book was even more visceral than the movie.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I was drawn to the movie because of the visuals. When I go out to visit my family, it's just acres of sprawling land and trees and nothingness and and cotton growing. It still actually looks like the set of The Color Purple right
Wow.
now in 2023. So
Crazy.
yeah, where my family is from, we're indigenous, and not much has changed. There's all these kind of tall tales of people, how they've intertwined, how they got to know each other, who came into whose life. And that's what The Color Purple felt like to me. Certain characters, like Oprah's character, just appearing and then just being this domineering woman, like stuff like that happens in the country. So that was also a relevant movie to me. I also grew up around like church culture.
Right.
So it was a lot. That movie was also relevant to me in a OG way.
Right. Yeah, just kind of having that, like, having that older perspective on one part of the country, like one that you're like physically connected to, and then having this newer, more modern connection to a place you've never been before, and having that kind
Mm-hmm.
of mold your expectations, especially for when you go over there. But before we get to that, when did you, I mean, like, I keep on trying to figure out a different way to like structure this question because it feels silly to ask it, but like, when did music first become a part of your life? Or at least like, when did you start to like actively, when did music become like an active thing in your life that wasn't just you passively listening to music and being like, this is cool, or like having it be background noise? Like, when was it like, oh, like music, you know?
Um, Hard to say because I recognize now when I look back that I experienced synesthesia like basically my whole life.
Mm,
Um, like even when I look at photos, there's like a photo of me in preschool and everyone's facing one way and I'm looking the other way. Like I heard something. Like and they took a picture of me looking the other way, and I'm in a class photo. So like sound and music has always just been a part of like my experience. I think I started focusing on it once I actually moved to the 804 area when I was young. And I was in like church choirs and school choirs. I was writing songs from 8 years old. And it was just something I wanted to work at. I saw people like Brandy and 702 and SWV, and I was just like, oh,
right.
this is dope. But then I also saw rap really taking a hold as well, and started listening to the radios, to the DJs, because my mom wasn't into rap, surprisingly, even though she went through the Black Arts movement, but she was more of a jazz R&B girl. So
Mm-hmm.
I was raised to know that music was important. My middle name is Simone, so she named me after Nina Simone. So it was actually like always a part of me to know that music is important and that I could participate in it. But luckily I had some musical talent. So I just started to have fun with it and write my own little songs and play them out for my friends and stuff.
And and before I forget, for those who don't know, 804, that's Virginia area code, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to grade school there, high school. Um, yeah, in that area, which is an interesting area, especially for hip hop. There's a lot of hip hop lovers, and now I feel like over the last 10 years, a lot of people's new favorites have come out of that area too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, a lot of mine are, like pretty much anybody coming out of Mutant Academy right now is like, like
Mm-hmm.
Flanagan and all of them, they're all amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Concept Jackson, he's super dope. And there, like, I could sit here and list names all day, but yeah, I feel like people are just now starting to realize that, like, and like, of course, like Missy's from there, Pusha
Mm-hmm.
T, Pharrell,
Mm-hmm.
once again, the list is endless. But I think people are just now starting to realize how much talent, because like there are so many people I talk to who don't even know that Missy Elliott's from Virginia, and it's like, how can I don't know, that feels like such a, that's just like, what? Like, how do,
Yo,
how do people not know this, like
yeah,
someone so
going
important? Like,
Yeah, going to school there and stuff, I totally understand why. It's very, most of the school systems have very active arts and music programs. So there, I think it's built into public education, even to at least learn how to participate in music. I never really went to school anywhere else, so other than Boston area, but yeah, I think that's really ingrained. And then you have time and resources to like explore that with your friends. It's not such a harsh lifestyle where you feel like you're going to get something taken away if you go work on raps or beats for a few hours with your friends. You actually have like that kind of time. So I see why it happens. And people are like, what's in the water? And I'm like, it's the environment and also the connection to gospel, to church culture. The church
right.
culture and choir culture is huge. I was on Bobby Jones gospel show with my choir when I was little. Like
Wow, it's crazy.
that's regular in Virginia, that's the social culture. There's really not at the time when I was younger. There wasn't much else. So it was either choir practice, theater practice, or movie time, or back home making beats for me. That's what my childhood was like.
Right. And that's like, and like, that's something that I can't tell you how many people, myself included, were like, just the whole like getting into music either happened through church or through like a music school program, or like if you were
Mm-hmm.
lucky enough, if you were lucky and fortunate enough, you could like go get lessons from somebody, like, like having those avenues and that access, especially after you're kind of watching stuff like Menace to Society, and kind of getting your own perspective on rap from a different area just off of that, like, and just like on top of all the other music that you make now, like you make so many different kinds of music that it's just like, I mean, like, I feel like for you it's all kind of rooted, maybe not rooted in rap,
Mm-hmm.
but like rap is very much a part of what you do, no matter what kind of music you're making. So like, while you're kind of doing all of this and having all these experiences, being on gospel shows and all this other shit, like, when did you know that music was going to become more than just a hobby for you? Like, it feels to me like you kind of already figured that out at that point, but like, what was that moment like?
I just felt like, even from writing songs as a kid, I'm like, music is such a part of me, like my actual identity as a person. Like, I make sense of so much through music, whether I'm actively participating in it or I found, even in the last couple years, even when I'm in a social setting and I'm around a bunch of people and I'm tuning out, I'm listening to the music. just like, wow, this is actually something that's there for me. This is a force in the universe that is here for me when I need something else. And my spirit and my existence really relies on it. I have to have music and sound to make sense of things. That's what I use to make sense of being a human. And
Yeah.
so once I realized that it's like existentially connected to me, I I knew that it would be something that I participate in many different ways and forms, rather than look at it in a conventional way where I think I have to be a pop star. I actually shied away from that. And I continue to shy away from any conventional notions of what I should be doing as an artist because it really is such a part of who I am that I don't want to get it twisted. Um,
Yeah.
so I knew that I will always be participating in music, but I always thought it would be in different forms. And I think the joy of life, I always say when I'm like 60, I'm gonna start like a screamo band. I
Nah, you
just set
better.
these goals. Yeah, I will. You'll see. You'll see it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start like a death metal screamo band like in my 60s with my friends, because my friends who are doing this now, like we're only gonna get more badass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at music. I tend to not have the same commercial goals as others that I may meet. And I know that any commercial goals are within reach if if I want, it's like if you really want to go for something. But other than that, this is existential to me. It's a life force, it's a gift, and it's an experience. Making music and sharing music is just something that I'll just do my whole life. And it's mostly something I have to manage, especially knowing that I have been placed in a commercial environment. It's something that I have to
Right.
manage being a part of. And so this new iteration is me becoming a music professor. Is something I actually always wanted to do. I never really thought it was possible to do without my PhD, which I do not have a PhD. I do not actually have a master's, but I have a decade plus of music, international music experience. And I always felt like that. I would tell people, I'm going to be a professor, but I won't go back to school for this because I just don't, they're
Right.
going to waste my time. I felt like that. I'm like, they're going to waste my time. I'm going to write a book. Who cares? Like, I just want to work with the next generation. And so this is something I've always wanted to do as well. That's just as valuable for me as being a member of the Recording Academy or performing at a festival. It's just as valuable to me. So I'm gonna play with my experience in music throughout my life. It's gonna change and shift and shape forms.
I love, like, first off, I love that answer, and I love like the 6 different directions it went in, just because like
Yeah.
it's just so because you saying all, I mean, like, I relate 100% on top of like on top of the whole like music being such an integral part of my life, like as a just like as like a journalist and as someone who covers all this music, like this is, to an extent, it's a huge chunk of my life. And on top of that, I also really relate to just the idea of like wanting to be in a position to help the next generation, and just like, like, just like be there to help people navigate this shit, because there's too many secrets that nobody's willing to tell.
Mhm.
And like, I just don't want to be that one person who's like 40 years old, just kind of off in their own corner, and like not just like, and just kind of just like disconnected from, I just like becoming like the crotchety old man is something that's always kind of very scary to me. And like, and like, that's not the reason why I help people. I help people because it's good to help people. But
Right.
like, it's just like you saying all of that reminded me of a conversation I was having with my man Austin. Shout out to Austin. Like maybe like a week and a half ago, just
Hmm.
about like the whole idea of like work life separation, and like how that works for us, and like, can it work, like how, like, like it all depends on how you look at it and what your relationship with this is. But like, like there are people, like there are people who kind of prefer to keep the work and on the work and life thing completely separate, and like music is a thing that's a job, and they do it and they enjoy it, but then they just kind of go off and have a whole separate life outside of that. I mean, like we all do, but like I mean, like to like an extreme extent where it's like there's a sharp binary divide between this is work and this is life,
Right.
but I tend to know a lot more people, and I am, me myself and clearly you are people who like music is so integrated into like our thought process and our emotional process and just like the way we see the world, that like a work and life split kind of becomes impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like how do you separate those two things when music is already such an integral part of your life, like and that's something that like I'm content enough that I'm cool with that. Not like I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I'm cool with music being this huge part of my life. And I guess, I mean, like, you've already said that you've accepted that, and you're ready to keep going into your 60s, and that's beautiful. Like what like especially since you became a professor, like what's it been like, because that's like a different level of commitment, which you already said, but like what's it like kind of being at that point where it's like I'm not just living this and like learning the experience in the best possible way, which is by doing it, but like what's it like kind of being at that point where you're like, oh man, like I'm teaching people about this and like helping to like mold a mind. Like like the idea of molding a young mind is like, like it's terrifying but also like really fulfilling and exciting. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have 50 students a semester. So each year now I'm teaching hundreds of people how to become better beat makers and how to become better rappers, which is what I teach. I teach beat making lab and rap lab, and my courses are lab courses, laboratory courses. So we actually take 3 hours a week and get into how to do this like science. And so it's dope. It's been actually amazing to teach people the origins of different beat-based music, techno, house, including hip hop. And now this semester I'm focusing on rap, which is really interesting because it's a rap lab, so everyone is going to have to leave having written some bars. Each assignment
Right.
is writing bars. My beat making lab last semester, you had to create 16 bar loops and 8 bar loops, and so my practice is very uh skill oriented, like based on building skills, and you walk out with having a catalog of beats or raps. It's not just me talking about the culture and teaching you the anthropological perspective, although I do that as well, just to inform you on how serious you should take the skill and the craft. But it's been amazing. I do have some students that just have cool ideas on hip hop and rap. Some who are already participating in it, beat makers who are like, yeah, I want to do my first show. I want to put out my first beat tape. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, well, this is what you need to have. And for this reason, it's felt so fulfilling and refreshing in a way where, unfortunately, just being in the music industry has not been. I feel as though there are, artists I've worked with that are dope, but and they come to me and I can tell they want to be mentored, or they say they want to be mentored, but it's like because there's this air of competition, even those who want to be mentored feel like, oh, I don't really want you to tell me anything. Like, I'm gonna be around you, but I don't really want you. And it's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, here I can actually say, well, if this is what you want to get better at, if you want your drums to knock, you can try this, and they don't get offended. Like,
Right.
they don't say, oh, she's coming for me, when I never was. It helps me, it healed me in that way. So to realize I was always this person that was capable at this level of providing this level of guidance. Because I do feel like my role within the community is to be of service and to help guide based off of what I didn't have. I definitely have come up in a time where I was playing raves. I was playing underground shows and warehouses in the early, 2009, 2010, and there were not a lot of Black artists around me, if any. There weren't a lot of Black people around me, if any. And so a lot of what I've learned and have learned to shape my skills as an artist have been from experience directly, and knowing what people say in rooms. Like, when you feel tokenized and you're around a bunch of Black people and they think that you're the cool Black person, they say a lot of things, and you learn. And I'm like, ooh, this is what they're gonna think of you. Okay, this is why we got to do it like this. This is what inspired me to start my label and collective Never Normal, and it's still the work continuing on into being a professor, where I want to inform them, basically empower them to have the knowledge and the skill set to be able to walk into any room and be able to converse and to be able to make beats or write raps with the best people there are. To have even that kind of small talk type of facts that they could, share and have somebody say, oh, what you know about that? And it works. It works. So yeah, it's felt very refreshing to be able to do that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And like even just like talking to you for this last like 40-ish minutes, like or maybe a little more than that, I forget. But like either way, like you even just like talking to you now, like it's just so it's so natural and it just feels great. And I can only imagine that kind of coming through even more in a classroom and just kind of, just like having the barriers come down and,
Oh yeah. And taking the respectability politics out of education. It's so silly. I mean, if you want to make beats for Young Nudie, and like I'm literally, I had a student, I have them bring in their stuff. I try to encourage them to be them, to like what they like. Don't put on airs for me or try to bring in something. I'm like, there's going to be cursing, there's going to be this and that. But we're talking about beats, we're talking about rap, and these are the highest grossing forms of music there are currently. Like, let's be real. This is the highest grossing genre. Hip hop and R&B are the highest grossing genres in the United States. So we're not going to pretend like, regardless of the respectability politics that people might want to place on them, that it's not the most popular stuff out. And so we're going to look at it in from all types of angles. And you want to make a beat like Young Nudie, we're going to listen to the Young Nudie track. I had to play Munch yesterday in class just because I had a student who was like, what is drill? And I'm like, oh, there's been an evolution of drill. And this is regular. It feels really dope to be able to hear what some of their questions are. And it informs me as an artist to know more about what people know and don't know, or what might excite them into the future.
Right. Yeah. And on top of that, it's just exciting for me to hear that Nudie and Ice Spice are being taught in college classrooms, because because EA is one of my favorite songs of the last like 10 years. The song that Nudie and 21 Savage made, and Ice Spice's EP is great. Like she's a star. She's gonna, like, she puts out like a proper project. I mean, like, this is a proper project, but like if she puts out like
EP?
Like once like if the album hits, she's certified. Like she's already certified, but like I fuck with Ice Spice. I think she's I just love how, like, I love how casual she is. Like she'll just like say something like real. Like I was listening to Gangsta Boo last night, the song, and obviously rest in peace to Gangsta Boo, one of my favorites ever. So sad. But I was listening to Gangsta Boo, and she said something on there about like I'm his bank, but he won't let me chase, or something like that. And like anybody else that wouldn't like anybody else, that'd be something that's kind of like, okay, like it's not like the most creative thing I've ever heard, but like she's so nonchalant and just like chill about it. She sold it, you know, like she sold it so well. And like I hear it, and like I like it makes it feel like she's the first person who ever said it, you know,
Facts.
in a way that like, yeah, she's tight. Shout out to
Facts.
Ice
And
Spice.
shout out to Ice Spice, and she's around the age of some of my students, and so it's, to me, I'm
Right.
like, can I teach this level of confidence? Like, if I don't teach you, I'm going to teach you some technical skills. I'm going to teach you some history and about the culture. But can I teach you how to be this confident? If I could teach you how to be this confident, you were going to take the world by storm, because that's most of what you need.
Right. And like you learned that from somewhere, and you while you were and you like while you were already making music by the time you started with them, of course, you kind of cut your teeth as a member of Clip Mode with
Mm-hmm.
Devin, Knowledge and Mind Design.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking to me about like going over to Cali for the first time, and of course or like at the very least Mind Design, and or no, Knowledge is from Jersey, but he posted up in Cali, and I think Mind Design's also from Jersey. Wow.
They're both
And
from
anyway.
Jersey. We all used to link up at my crib in Philly.
Okay.
I had the headquarters, and I lived in Philly and Northern Liberties. I had the one crib we all used to link up at, and yeah, they were both in Jersey at the time, and Knowledge came and stayed with me one summer. Like, like I had an extra room. I'm like, all right, bro, you downstairs. Like, and so yeah, it was formative. That is where I gained a lot of confidence. I think being in a crew with, you know, male identified identities, you know, that had a level of confidence that maybe I didn't have yet, but I formed
Right.
in the group. It was a dope experience. I was actually the first person though to go to Cali, to go to LA, and then they all started coming over, and they're like, oh, we got to get out there, we got to play low end
Wow.
theory. Yeah.
Damn, like, yeah, like you were kind of, you were kind of out there and doing your thing, like just before, if not like directly during, like the big LA beat scene explosion in like the early 2010s, which is like, it's so crazy to think about this shit in the past tense, because like it's been a decade since all that happened, and you're like, I've
Mm-hmm.
been looking back on like all the early stuff that y'all did, and just like everything that like like Kev did with that daddy Kev did with Low End, and of course
Mm-hmm.
Flying Lotus and Blue and all of them, it's just like, and it's just crazy to think about that in the past tense. But what was like when you got to Cali and kind of took what you had learned from what y'all were doing out in Philly, like how do you feel California kind of molded and shaped you as an artist, like as someone who kind of spent all their time on, yeah, on several different parts of the East Coast?
Yeah, at that time, by the time I went out there, I had been living in Philly for like 4 years, and I was just amazed at kind of the beauty, which is what a lot of producers too that go out there from, like, even, Dilla went out there from Detroit. It's like you go out
Mm-hmm.
there, you're like, "Ooh, I'm tired of the winter." That's like the first thing you think. You're like, "I'm tired of being so cold." Philly gets so cold too. And then you're like, "Wait, there's sunshine. Wait, I can stretch. Wait, like the attitudes of the people are kind of more go with the flow. It's like, oh, no worries. People tell you stuff like, and you see his group's called No Worries, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
something we had to learn. We did not grow up feeling like no worries. We grew up feeling like, and people would say that. That's
Yeah.
something that you hear people say out in LA. It was funny that they chose that name, because I'm like, oh, that's perfect. It's
Right.
something we started saying to each other, because we never knew that type of ease had never been extended to us. So just knowing that type of ease was possible, that there was a group of listeners out there that want to hear big, expansive music, big beats, very intricate production. It really expanded our minds to know that there was other places that we could go, that I could go and just be me and be creative. I mean, you go out there, man, you go out there and you get taken to the Stone Stow studios, and people giving you vinyl, and then Coleman's loading up your USB with samples, and like, it's just kind of a dream that happened. I don't know if it still happens like that when people go out there, but that really was what was happening at the time, especially being younger. I think we were, as Clipmo, we were some of the younger people to go out there. Of course, we met contemporaries like Flying Lotus and Tokimasa, but even those people are still a little older than us.
Right.
So we were going out there a little. I mean, we were like early 20s going out to LA, and so it was a dream world. It was definitely a dream world for me, for sure. I felt like a lot was possible. However, I felt like there was more work to do. Once I knew that was there, I was like, I don't want to get caught up in the sunshine, because knowing this is here, I think there's more work to do on the East Coast too, as far as just furthering things along for Black femme expression. I didn't feel like Black femme expression was where it needed to be enough for me to like really move out to LA at the time.
Right.
I just didn't feel like that. I never want to be the only one, I always want to feel like there's a community. Now there is more. But yeah, at that time I was like, let me just go back to New York. It was either, stay in Philly, go to LA, or go to New York. And I actually decided to go to New York and be amongst family, and just kind of get my New York chops even more down, where it's a place I had been traveling back and forth from for a while, living in Philly, and my dad is from the Bronx. But what I did was bring the LA ease even to New York. So then I'm starting to play more warehouse stuff. I'm playing bass music. I'm playing stuff that people weren't playing in New York. Like, it was really like, you make hip hop beats. People were not performing beats out in New York like that at that time. All of that was really inspired by LA. So it prompted me to even more so start Never Normal for a outlet of expression where people know you can come play whatever you want. I'm not about to make you feel like you need to be, the next Duck Down producer. Like, I'm not.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Which is honestly what was still happening even into the mid 2000s in New York. It wasn't a lot of room. The only other thing that was happening hip hop wise was, the Atlanta rappers were coming eating New York up. Like,
right. Yeah,
eat it
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Every press run, they were getting a lot of love. And so New York was actually in an interesting place at the time, but I think I brought a lot of the LA ease and a lot of the musical sensibilities to the city as I could. And I've only seen the barriers broken down from there. Ever since then, I've seen more people. I even played. I remember 2011. We did a low end theory at the Knitting Factory. Me, Daddy Kev, and Teeps. That was a lineup. And I looked back. I just saw that pop up. Like, whoa, that was 2011. I'm like rocking low end theory with Daddy Kev at the Knitting Factory, like in Brooklyn. And I just, it was a time where anything felt possible. Now anything truly feels possible, but we really had to break those barriers and really kind of extend the East to West Coast music relations in a way, bridge the gap between production styles on each coast. And it's been a journey for sure.
Right. And yeah, like I'm happy you said all of that, because like, like I said before, you make and incorporate so many different kinds of music into what you do. Like even like even just listening to Infinite Zonez, just like hearing like the rap bass, but also just seeing you go into like every different kind of electronic and dance music, and like you got like ghetto tech going on, you got fucking bass music going on, you got fucking like you got like drum and bass shit going on, which like I'm having a huge drum and bass moment right now. I've been like banging hella Tokyo Pill for no reason, but like but like you got drum and bass next to techno and next to like what sounds like Amapiano music, like electronic South African music. Like there's just so much. It's like almost overwhelming the amount of stuff that you put into what you do, and like your own music, and with all the artists you work over with it, Never Normal. Just like, how do you? I guess I'm just like, how do you manage? Like it's just like it can be so overwhelming and frustrating to kind of incorporate, or at least attempt to master one form of music. Never mind like 9 or 10, like just like, hearing an album like Infinite Zones is just like, I'm just amazed at not just the range, but like the ability to keep it all together and not just have it sound like every song belongs on a different project, like it's like, how do you manage that? Like,
Yeah, so like zones, infinite zones, and the concept of zones itself
mhm,
is the manifestation of my real life experiences. So going to these real places and hearing music really played in the real authentic ways, that the people who create it and play it, like regionally in these different regions, whether they be regions in the Midwest or regions in the West Coast or regions in East Africa, going in, actually dancing for hours to this stuff or taking it in, and having my own experience with it. It informs me. That's the best type of education you could really get, is going to see
yeah,
things in real life. So I feel like I've been more than blessed to be able to travel and to attend so many different shows, like so many different
yeah,
festivals, just even not even always playing. Like there were so many times where I just get invited to things, and I have a takeaway, every time. And I started to tell myself, hey, you need to capture this. You need to capture these takeaways. You need to actually like try to document these takeaways in your own way, and play the zones. I'm like, that's the zones, different time zones.
that's
Um,
hard.
yeah, being in Cali or being in Tokyo or being wherever I'm at, and just knowing that there's this one constant thread of you and your lens and your perspective, that you could lend to people musically. And so um, I basically catalog each experience. Sometimes I'll even be in the club and I'm taking like a note of something. It might be the most obscure thing, like, oh, like it's in the red, 11:59 p.m. like something, and I'll remember
Yeah.
what that means. And when I go sit down, I say, okay, what were my notes from my life? And I sit down and I make things, some of the terms, some of the phrases that are said on some of the tracks are like things that the names, the titles of different tracks are things I actually thought in the moment while dancing or experiencing in different nightlife scenarios. So that's kind of how I open myself up to even just experiencing. And I go through periods where I'm like, I'm not about to just make tracks. I'm not one of those producers that just binge make tracks like every day though. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm about to sit down and make beats. Like I found that was like restrictive for me. I actually
Yeah.
come and I said, oh, it feels like this cup is full enough of inspiration for me to sit down now, and now I'm going to create, and I'll give myself a little deadline. But I actually make tracks really fast and I make them kind of all in one sitting. So that leads to the sonic palette, not going too far out, but every once in a while I'll find something that I made 3 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe even a year ago. Say, oh, this fits with the rest of them, and this captures the moment. But there is a curation process with that. So that's kind of a bit of my process for how I try to create. It is like usually all in one foul swoop. I sit down and I just say, oh, this is the week that I'm about to just make as much as I can and see what I
Right.
like in the end.
Yeah, like I love, like that's beautiful, just like in the sense that like like everyone's process is different, but not everyone can just like encapsulate all those different sounds. Because like I listen to people like, like you, and people like Jada Lorraine, and people like J Words, and just like and like I mean like Jada as far as I know, Jada's just a DJ, but like you and J Words, shout out to J Words, by the way. I hope Jen's doing good. Y'all are both like DJs and producers.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that and you know, like the way that like the way that I'm always really interested in people who can like do all sorts of those different things, like whether they be like a rapper producer or like a producer and a DJ, or like, because like those two or three or however many different forms always kind of like in conversation with each other. And like I can tell the way that your experiences as a DJ definitely contribute to the way that you produce, especially talking about the way you just curated everything. I just think that's dope. I didn't have anything else to say.
Yeah, I would also attribute a lot of that to my formative time around Low End Theory.
Right,
Low
I'm
End
sure.
Theory has and continues to inspire me. The two things that have inspired me the most as far as my performances have been church and Low End Theory. And I'll just say that in fact, because Low End Theory was like the church of big beats and bass. And I say that because both of those experiences they call for a certain effect that gets enlisted out of the people. Like in church, you want a catharsis, and I think you want it all to pour out. You want to be able to scream. You want to be able to cry, to run up and down the aisle, whatever you need to do. And in Low End Theory, you kind of wanted to hear the biggest bass. You wanted your face to melt off. You wanted to make that scrunched up face, like, and you would know that you're really doing your job. And so that effect, it informs my performances to this day. I feel like if things aren't hitting, things aren't slapping, and the beat's not really making you contort your body, then what am I doing? I don't feel effective.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to dwell on this too much because I know we're kind of running out of time. But I saw what's it called? Daddy Kev played his first show in New York in 5 years, maybe about 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
My homegirl Ariel Legrand, shout out, or I hope I got her last name right. Shout out to Ariel either way. Love you.
Yes.
She hosted a show. With Kev, and just like seeing, like him and a couple of my homies, Nothing New and Wavy Bagels out of Jersey. Shout out to both of them too. Just like seeing them, like just like being in an environment that's in any sort of way, shape, or form like Low End Theory, because I've never been to a Low End Theory. I've only been to
Mm-hmm.
California once in my life, but like kind of having that experience and just like seeing the way people react, and just like, like I'm that type of person too, who like, like I don't, like I don't feel right at those types of shows if the bass isn't like shaking my heart, like giving me palpitations type shit. Like that's what I want. So
Mm-hmm.
like, like getting to experience that with someone as formative to that kind of scene in a modern context as Daddy Kev, and like people who are really moving and shaking like J Words and like Nothing New and like Wavy Bagels, like it's just you really can't put a price on that type of stuff. That's where the sweet spot of life is for me personally.
Yeah,
So
that's a fact.
yeah. And also, like before I even forget, like we were talking earlier about, like like you kind of bringing a different type of representation for women and femme identifying people with Never Normal. And then of course, like you link up with Issa Rae. Either no, it was last year. You link up with Radio and you do everything with them with the creators program. So like walk me through that experience. Like what was it like working with Issa Rae and Radio to kind of because like one thing I like after I think maybe about the second half of the second season, I fell off Insecure. Not because I didn't like it. I really enjoyed it. I just kind of fell off. But one
Mm-hmm.
thing I always loved about the show was their music supervision. Like the music they picked was always on point. Like they, like they had people on the ground. Like I could tell, and Issa Rae seems like she's someone who's really devoted to music. So like talk to me about what it was like working with her and working with the Radio Creators program.
Yeah, so the Radio Creators Program was a program and is a program that they partner with Google to select 4 different femme identifying musicians of color. And the majority of us were Black. There were 3 Black artists, and there was one Asian American artist who's an amazing composer. So her and I represented the composers, and the other 2 represented singer-songwriters. And so we all were given an amazing budget to be able to create a catalog for their library of music for film and TV. And we also went through some time of trainings with them, just meetings, different people. They basically took some time to like mentor us, have us meet like, this is Issa Rae's business CPA, like sat us down with her, like, and
Right.
who was another Black femme. It was so encouraging. It made me feel so seen, and it made me feel like the work I've been putting in independently for my label Never Normal is all for a reason. Like, it can really take people, and it does take people places, and that you work for your team, that you really put on for those who are around you, that you believe in, that we need to uplift each other. And that's what I feel like Issa Rae is doing. When I was able to talk with her, she's just like, well, yeah, you're down with the family now. And I'm just like, wow. Like, every no people even in underground music don't talk to you like that. People, people feel like they need to protect so much, and this woman who has literally gained the world knows that it's important to inspire people, the next generation. It's important to inspire the future composers. I mean, me myself, I want to compose more for film and TV. Like, that's been on a part of my goals. I've achieved it somewhat. I haven't scored a film, a feature length film just yet, but I do want to. And I'm like, it's now more possible. I told them, I mean, why can't I be like the Trent Reznor Black girl? Like,
Come
why
on
can't
now.
that's what
Come
I
on
want
now.
to do. That's what needs to happen. And so
Yeah.
my collection was, when we had to present our collection to the public, I said, electronic music scoring, there's some notable people like Trent Reznor, who is also a musician and has a full-fledged band, but can switch it up and be respected as a composer. And that's what I'm going for. But in the music business, people need to continue to put us in places to make that possible. So I do feel like working with Issa Rae and radio, they are working to put me in a place like that, so it might not happen today or tomorrow, but I am currently scoring something cool that I'll announce soon. So stay on the
Hell
lookout for
yeah.
that. I'm scoring a cool media project coming up, and I've had more scoring opportunities each year, more and more. So yeah, I was so happy to experience that, and for once, and especially coming from another Black femme, to just get patted on the back and say, hey, you're actually worth a lot. Like, here's a good budget.
Yeah.
And I was able to pay my own musician friends, violinists, bassists, percussion players. Like, I was able to pay them to just record with me and record this collection that I had in mind. And that felt so great, to just be able to give some people in my community like something that it feels like, yeah, I'm breaking you off right now. Like, this is good. This is where I want to be. Like, and Issa Rae does that daily. So she's now empowering other femmes in the game to be able to do that too. And I'm like, yo, this is the type, when we talk about equity, this is it. This is true
There it is.
equity. Yeah,
Ugh.
this is true equity. That was a theme of my life last year, between that and becoming a professor. It's just like, true equity is possible, and we have to keep pushing for it.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I just want to say before I ask you my last question, like, just like black women femmes, if y'all are listening, which I hope you are, like, y'all are priceless. Like, like like y'all are the reason that our culture moves and shakes the way it does, like your representation and your perspective and your presence is not only what inspires us, but like where like y'all are the center of this shit. You're priceless. You deserve everything and more. Like if like if they make you an offer, double it. Like please,
Facts.
like
Thank you.
please, 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 please. Like that's something that I want. Yeah, like especially black women and femmes listening. Like y'all are the world. So please, just like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, like that made me real emotional. Sorry, you saying all of that. I was like,
It is. It's something precious. It's something precious, and
yeah,
it's something that we haven't said out loud enough. I have a track called
facts.
Love Me Louder, or it's called Louder, and it's just about that. Like, don't just,
Mm-hmm.
even shout out Jungle Pussy. She said, don't be undercover loving me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
don't do
Yeah.
that. Like, say our names in these rooms, speak our names. For people who pitch things, like say our names, be loud about us, put us on, put us push us forward. Our allies have the ability to do that, and we can be each other's allies too. And
Right.
that's what I aim to do. Projects I put out, we put out Never Number, we put out J Word's first projects. At that time, I mean, it was a lot. It's a lot of growth that's happened since then. And when I see her now, I'm like, this is what I wanted for you. This is where I want you.
Right.
This track led to a whole EP, a whole project with another person. When I see her working with Masai, I'm
Oh
like,
man, Air is amazing, bro.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, this is, and that stems from the time we're together, that where I encourage her, hey, you should work with some peers amongst. She's like, well, I could collaborate with you. And so she tried to put some ideas together, but I'm like, yo, work with people around you. That's going to be the best thing. You're going to be able to create real relationships off that. Wow, how I've gotten to see that grow. Like, this is exactly what I wanted. And I feel like the same way Issa Rae is going to be able to look at me in a few years and say, this is exactly what I wanted. And this is what we
Mm-hmm.
have to do. This is just what we have to do.
Right. Yeah, nah, what's it called? Not only were J Words and Masai the second episode I ever did of this podcast, Jen did the theme song for this.
Oh,
Like like
cool.
you hear so like every episode of this show since 2021 has begun and ended with J Words' music, and it's gonna be that way for the foreseeable future. Like and like I just try to that's important to me. Like Jen is someone whose work I respect a ton. And to see her grow, and just like I didn't even realize that y'all were affiliated. So that's even better. Like I love that, like that's a full circle moment in and of itself. But like I say like I say that to say that, like I do what I can, whether it's through this or through my work at Pitchfork. I I just try to put on for as many people, specifically black women, as I possibly can. Like I can't do everything, but like that's all we can. That's like that's like the base of what we can do, is just like say
Mm-hmm.
names,
Mm-hmm.
attempt to make shit happen, even if it doesn't happen. Like like
Yeah.
we're all we got. Like
We're
that's just
all we
important to me.
got. And that's really how I move. And I'm glad that's how you move. And that's really what it's about.
Right. And I know you got to go. Very last question for you. If your life was a movie, what would it be about? And would you score it? Would you score your own? Would you score the movie of your life?
I would absolutely score the movie of my life. Zones is actually little mini scores of my life. And
Mm.
yeah, if you really listen. And then what would it be about? What would it be about? I mean, we didn't even really get into my life story, but I think when I do make it, I think I will make this in my lifetime. It's a goal. It's a goal to show people how surreal my life has been. Um, I think there's some things that they would have never expected. And so how could this girl just dream up this world? Like, how it would be around that, and around the many colorful characters that have been a part of that world building for me. It would really show. It'd be raw. I feel like I wanted to be raw, like Menace to Society, like showing the real raw experiences, but at the same time having surrealism, a lot of surrealism, even like similar to random acts of flyness.
Yeah.
That's something amazing works of art that we've been recently blessed to see. And yeah, how can I go from all these places? It would be a very global movie. It very surreal. I don't think there's a movie out like what I would make about my life.
I mean, like like that different, never before seen type of shit is what usually pushes things forward. So yeah, like that's great. Like I like that if that were to happen, there isn't really like a template for that. Like that's more exciting to me
Yeah.
personally.
There's
But
not a template for me like that.
right.
This has been truly original content.
Right. Yeah, no, in every way, shape, and form, like, and just yeah, your story and the things that you've been able to accomplish, and just like the positions that you've filled and the people you've helped and the music you've made, and just like you've done so much. You've done so much. And just like as a fan and as someone who's kind of admired your work from afar, just like thanks for the work. Thanks for putting in the work and putting on for other people. And just like, this was so dope. Like, thank you so much for a great convo. Like, this is so much fun, and just learning more about you was a treat. So I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. And shout out the listeners. If you made it this far, you're the realest.
Yeah, no, that's a fact right there. Damn. Thanks for listening. Shout out to y'all for making it this far. And shout out to all the Black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend to come through next time.